attention is now on Kogi governorship, Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo State governorship election. Well, INEC, National Commissioner in charge of voter education and publicity, Mr. Sam Olumeko, has come to say the commission is worried about the spate of violence and clashes that have been seen over the last few days and weeks. And he says that the commission is worried that the nation, things are heating up, and that cannot be sustained, as those kind of violent situation cannot be allowed to go on as the election draws close. It's just about a month before the election, and the commission said it will continue to closely monitor the situation and sustain its engagement with security agencies and stakeholders to ensure a peaceful conduct of elections in the three states. The commission says in the engagement that they had with political parties, the commission has constantly called on parties to rein in their supporters from actions capable of jeopardizing the peaceful conduct of elections in Nigeria. Already we're seeing some kind of violence. Some of the pictures that you can see on your screen, some situation that may not be relating to politics or election in Imo State. What we've seen in Kogi State relating to politics and gunshot marks on vehicles, allegations and counter allegations between political parties in Kogi State. Kogi State seems to have been the hotbed of some of these activities. Let's get talking, everyone, and I have some very good experts tonight to dissect these issues for us. I have our security consultant expert, Dr. Undu Nwokolo. He's the head of Next Year. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Shane.
And I have an election security expert, Mr. Bukola Ido, who is the executive director of Kimpact. Thank you so much, Mr. Ido, for joining us tonight on the program. I guess I should begin. Both of you have done a report. You've done extensive research on the election security ahead of November the 11th. Well, let me hear from you, Mr. Ido. What do we know? What worries you the most from the research report that your organization has?
Thank you very much, Shewa, and I'm so happy to be here. I think what really worries us and that we have been raising the alarm now has been the rate of attack from political parties and attacking each other, and that has been what has topped the rate of violence in those states. You see, this electoral violence, they are in different dimensions, and then you find destruction of properties, which is about destruction of campaign materials, billboard and everything like that have to do with campaign. We have insightful speeches, or what you better call dangerous or hate speech, and then we have shooting, we have assassinations, and at the same time, what really worries now is an attack that is linked with rallies and campaigns. You find party A, party B coming from rally, and then at some point, they are being attacked. And this is a dangerous signal towards that election. And this, when you now put it on the scale, you find it that this is what is common to all of them, but we have it in a higher magnitude in Kogi State. And when you even look at the rate, what we have documented around election violence, most of the incidents happen in Kogi State, and which is worrying. And but again, when you look at other states too, we also have different underlying factors that are also being wrapped around the political violence or the electoral violence. For instance, in Bayelsa, you find the issue of parties, and then the issue of the oil for business also have a link with electoral violence that we have seen there. Even in the Imo, you find the issue of the agitation, the ongoing agitation, also even having a means of wrapping itself around the electoral violence. Again, the state actors or the non-state actors, you also find them coming into that particular space. But in Kogi, it's just so political that you don't even have other factors that you can actually link with that. So you have huge of electoral violence rearing its head in Kogi State. And what, again, one of the things that worries us is that these 3 states that will be having an election the same day in November have rich history of electoral violence. And this is what when you look at the trajectory and look at what they have done in the past around electoral violence, one of the things we need to do this time around is that we need to quickly nip this at the board. And I'm also happy, apart from civil society talking, all of us raising our voice, INEC has also been talking, and all we need to see now is that these have to be nipped at the board.
All right.
Or else we might begin to have a situation where we have in Anambra, where you have lowest turnout in most of these states come November 11th.
Quickly, before I bring Dr. Nwokolo, you've highlighted assassination, mob attack, shooting as some of the scenarios that are played out in the mapping and your research work. But you have said the mob violence, they're about over 40% of it. They take the chunk, the greatest chunk of the kind of violent activities that we've seen in all of the 3 states. Interestingly, Imo has more violent activities ranging from assassination to shooting to mob attack and all of that. But Kogi State, in your own research report, which you have released, seems to have just 2: shooting, mob attack. Bayelsa State has a few others too. Give us a sense of what you think is happening here.
So this violence that we talked about here now, that the slide you've shown just now, actually talk about the general environment. You know, that is the general security environment. But if you look at the next slide, where you see the breakdown, you will see that we have more in Kogi, and that has to be, and that is worrying. For instance, when you see Kogi now, you see that you have like about 16 in that particular place, and then the next thing is when you now see that again in that magnitude in Imo. But what is so common here is that now in October now, because also the data I'm showing you now that you have now is just within September now, but in October we have an updated report that shows that Kogi has even increased. In fact, as of this weekend, I'm talking about Saturday, you also have attacks in Kogi, and this is it. And then let me also quickly explain, when we talk about mob attack, is because you find it difficult to pin it down, to pin the attacker down to a single person, but it's like a mob, it's like a coordinated activity by a particular group that just move emerge into a particular place and then begin to perpetrate violence, and that is what we have seen. We have more of that in Kogi.
So fundamentally, Kogi is a hotbed and is perhaps one that gives us more worry in all of the 3 states. All right, let me bring Dr. Nwokolo. Dr. Nwokolo, thank you so much. You have also done an intense research on this matter. What do you know now?
So I think there are a couple of things happening. First, this will be the first election that is coming under the leadership of President Ahmed Tinubu. First. So you have 2 governors who are running for re-election, and you have a governor who wants to hand over to someone from his party. So in Kogi, for instance, you have APC against SDP. In Imo, is a 3-way fight between the Labour Party, the APC, and the PDP. In Bayelsa, is a 2-way, almost like a 2-way fight between PDP and the APC. Now, when you look at all this, what we are seeing are violence that are mopping from original existing issues. For instance, in Imo, just like what he said, in as much as their political violence, this political violence are exacerbated by existing secession agitation and other forms of issues like the unknown gunmen and so on going on in that area. Incidentally, this area runs from what we currently call the belt of violence in the southeast, which cuts across Olu to Okigwe side of Imo State. So this is where most of these things will play out. In Bayelsa, what you have is that Bayelsa seems to be the state with the least violence somehow. However,
at the moment.
However, what we are seeing is in the southern Ijaw area. Incidentally, that is where the governor running for the governorship candidate from APC is from. And the PDP are making an inway into the place. So that is where you are having this kind of violence. Incidentally, you have court members who are former militants showing interest in politics and are easily used by politicians, deploy them for what they want to do. Like Justice said, Kogi State is showing more direct political violence. However, you can't rule out that there's a lot of issues of terrorism in some part of Kogi that is always equally making some kind of negative role to what we're experiencing. So in overall, we are looking at an election where the state's ability to deploy state security resources to do a lot is being limited. So we could see that there's showing of naked power by politicians. They are all moving all out to clinch power. And to do this, they're deploying both an existing security situation, cashing on an existing security situation, as well as a political situation that is going on. So you see a lot of this morphing together to what we're experiencing today.
And if you look at it, for example, Kogi State is bordered about nothing less than 6 states: FCT, Kwara, Edo, Ondo. You look at Imo State, bordered about 3 states: Anambra, Abia, Delta, and the River
State, and Abia.
Abia, Delta, and of course you have Abia, Delta, Anambra. Then it's bordered by the river on the other side. If you look at Bayelsa, majorly bordered by River State, and you have the sea on the other part. So now, this tendency, for example, in Bayelsa State, the climate there is largely, and the kind of violence you see is mostly different from what you see in Kogi. It's sometimes different from what you see in Imo State. Now, if it were an election that has similar or one kind of attribute, you say that the security agencies will find an easy way to tackle it. But this has a multi-faced approach. It must get a multi-faced approach. What are majorly in Bayelsa State? The issue of terrorism and how Kogi State can be contained during the election, I mean, before the election, during the election, and after the election, and what is going on in Imo State. How difficult do you think this is going to be? Because it's going to get more intense as the day draws close.
So I think the mistake we make sometimes is when we're looking at electoral insecurity, we try to think that it's different from other insecurity that we're experiencing. This is not different from what the Nigerian state is and what Nigerian state is currently experiencing. So for us to understand it is to first agree and to say that this is similar to all forms of insecurity. But how do we start tackling it? First is for us to equally agree that the power of the Nigerian state to deal with this level of insecurity has been limited by a lot of things. I think that if we first agree on that, it gives us room to start looking at, so what should we be doing now? I think which is very important. First, that's where mapping comes in. So in terms of mapping, you might be looking at, so what were the hotspots the last time we had an election? Doing such mapping will help. But the most important thing to some of us who are watchers of what is happening is how does the state demonstrate its neutrality between the political elite? This is the most important thing. So if you have a state, when I mean a state here, I mean state institutions who are supposed to...
Like the DSS,
the police, the INEC, and everybody.
The military has its work cut out for it to protect the perimeter.
Exactly.
The DSS, intelligence.
Exactly.
The police to be on the ground and man it. NSA, the civil defense to man the critical national infrastructure.
Exactly.
So everyone adds their role.
Exactly. So it is a situation where each state institution shows the same level of neutrality to everybody. It becomes easier to start handling.
But we've seen some kind of activities in Imo State from yesterday, 2 days ago.
So
that is getting a lot of reaction.
Good.
Too.
So these are the kind of things that increases the tempo. So for an instance, if I am a political party and I am thinking that someone is going to use the federal might or the state might to win an election, so what do I do in that instance? It pushes me to become extendable.
Self-help.
Exactly.
All right, just for a moment, Doc. Let me bring back Mr. Bukalaido. There are those who believe that if INEC is truly independent, if there is no distrust in the ability of INEC to deliver a free and fair election, it will help in election security. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree to that to a larger extent because, you see, election is about trust. Citizen trusting and then believing in the whole process. And then when when the citizen trust has been eroded, then you find out that that also is what we call potential for violence. And I must say, it's not only the INEC alone. Like he said, all the government institutions that are involved in the election, most especially the ICES, Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, you see, which comprises all the security agencies and that monitor the election. One of the things we need to begin to look at is that when you have security agencies, number one, let's take police as an example. It is called Nigerian police, not APC police, not PDP police. And that is why we begin to find we have issues where you have the incumbents belonging to a particular political party in a particular state. The security apparatus always have been accused or allegedly accused to be dancing to the tune of the incumbent. And that is why their neutrality is key. One of the things you cannot take away from the citizen is that they want an apparatus, they want INEC that is highly independent, they want the security agency that is highly independent, and that is key. Now, if you look into one of the slides we put there is a high correlation. One of the things we also find out that a high correlation between where you have more security, you find out that the issues of electoral violence are lesser in those local governments than where we have lesser security. So what it means is that could it be that we need to now begin to deploy adequately and strategically to locations that have been mapped as hotbed. And that is key. We need to begin to look into that because you cannot just deploy. And one of the things we don't want to see in this election is that, police is deploying, 30,000. And we need to want to see the strategic, deployment. It is not about just deploying that number and the majority of them are at the state capital. You need to find out where they are. And there are a lot of reports that have been showing hotspots, that are showing where violence are likely going to take place. We need higher deployment in those places, and that is key. So in answering that question, not only INEC can only do, and if INEC is going to, for instance, if INEC just go out and conduct a seamless process election, right. And then the security, if they sit back, it can also mess up the whole process. For instance, right. People come to vote, and then because the security agencies are there, ballot boxes are being carted away. So we need that synergy, and we want to see that synergy being independent of any political party, right. And that is what we want to see.
Dr. Nwokolo, give us your parting shot.
So I think first is to say that INEC does not control the security apparatus. It's controlled by the Nigerian state, who in turn is directed by the government in power or any government in power. So what we should be seeing here is that INEC should work with the security, with whatever security structure that is given to it. It's equally important to understand that this is a situation where APC will want to retain their state that they currently have. PD will equally want to retain their power, the state they equally have. However, what is key in most of these things is that that we start looking at where the last issues happened the last time, to use it as a template in curbing whatever electoral violence that might likely occur.
Dr. Ndu Wokolo, who is head at Next Year, thank you so much for your time tonight, and a security expert. And Mr. Bukola Idowu, who is the executive director of Key Impact and is election security expert. Thanks so much indeed, gentlemen, for your time. I appreciate it.